Hello and welcome to the Quackcast. This is the Drunkduck Quackcast with me, Ozone Ocean, Tanzarine, and Baines. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. So, in this Quackcast, we're going to be talking about gendered fashions, guys. How do you like that? Gendered fashion? Because, I mean, fashion is a pretty gendered thing. And, like, you're drawing characters for your webcomics. They've got clothes on. They have hair in a certain way. They look a certain way. How do you indicate that this character's male? How do you indicate they're female? How do you indicate that they're non-binary? You know, like all this. How do you indicate that they're trans? They're male trans. They're female trans. How do you indicate that? You do that with the fashion. You do it with the hair. You do that with the outfits and stuff like that. The way people choose to present themselves in a gendered way, which is based on fashion. This isn't based on, you're not born with long hair and, you know, like a flowing skirt or a pencil mustache or something like that. Not outside of cartoons. So these gendered fashions are fashions. They're not part of our culture and history, like in a way that they've always been this way. They change because fashions change. They alter. What was gendered fashion back in the 1970s is quite different to what it is now. I mean, we think that it's the same, but no, it's always different. And like 100 years ago, it was different again. 400 years ago, it was incredibly different. This stuff...
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, gone.
My video is going crazy.
It is.
Oh, before we get into that, I'll have to bring up the featured comic. So the featured comic this week was Masks. So I'm going to tell you about masks now. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Masks comic. The world of masks is similar to our own, but differs in a crucial way. That would be the existence of superheroes. We're introduced to high-speed action as superhero Flick battles a burning supervillain with fiery powers. Despite the vicious nature of the battle, you expect things to go the usual way, but you'd be wrong. Then we're introduced to Danielle, a non-superhero who's about to have a very painful experience. The art is uncomplicated, streamlined and pretty, full colour and digital. The writing is dramatic and action-filled with minimal text. So I hope you follow along with this one as it develops, because it's still in the early stages. There's a Spanish language one as well, Spanish language version. So if you click through and have a look at the comic, you'll be able to find the Spanish language version either on the comic or on the profile of the creator. And the creator of the comic is Masks Comic. And it's rated M for mature audiences. So have a look at Masks Comic. And that was Masks. I hope you liked that. Little interesting comic. Okay, so next up we're talking about the featured music. Gummels has given us a theme to a comic called Eye Hand Voice. So I will tell you about Eye Hand Voice. A male's high wall of sound that snakes over the landscape and reaches up to the high heavens. Gunwallers builds this tune brick by brick till it blocks out the sun. It's a mighty effort layered with synth sounds and a driving beat. Take it away, Gummels, with your theme to Eye Hand Voice. Hand Voice, which is a comic by Calamity Comics, and it's rated M for mature. I hope you have a look at that. All right. Now, on to the Quackcast of gendered fashions. So, Baines, you rocking the male skirt yet? Or is that just too much?
In a way, it sounds appealing. Like it feels like maybe it would feel good. Get a little draft, get a little fresh air. But
Breathe
I'm
off.
too self-conscious to do that. I don't even wear shorts in public.
Oh dear.
That's not true, actually. But it's fun.
Well, me, I just wear the underpants all the time. That's all. You don't even need the trousers or the skirts. Just straight underpants. That's all you need.
Right.
Just,
I don't know. I mean, I really like skirts or dresses on a guy. And I also feel like even if I didn't like it, sometimes, especially for example in summer or in certain situations, being able to wear a skirt is going to be practical. And I think it is unfair that either gender is excluded from that. I don't think it's fair, honestly.
yeah, I mean, gendered fashion is very limiting, isn't it? Because you're stuck in through these cultural roles, only being able to wear certain things. And it wasn't that long ago when, I mean, we were saying in our Patreon video that trousers came in for women. I mean, they always had points in history where these things crossed over. Men wearing skirts, women wearing trousers, blah blah blah. It went back and forward. But recently, say in the late 19th century, trousers started to come in, but they only really started to come in the 1920s, and that was bit by bit. But that still wasn't a universal thing, and it was still even into the 1980s or the 1970s. It was still considered a bit weird for women to wear trousers in different kind of contexts. I mean, we even have terms like a trouser suit. Like, oh, this lady's wearing a trouser suit. Doesn't this trouser suit look good? And you think, what the hell are you talking about? It's just a suit, not a trouser suit. For a man, it's a suit. For a woman, it's a trouser suit. Like,
I've never heard that phrase.
Oh, it's all over like American pop culture, like their movies and stuff like that. Anytime Hillary Clinton wore trousers, it was a trouser suit.
I thought it was a pantsuit.
Oh, well, there you go. Sorry, there you are.
Yeah, same
Sorry.
thing, I guess.
Yeah. It's just different terms, but yeah. But
it's the same thing. Yeah.
Pantsuit.
Now that I think about it, in Greek, we have in the Greek vocabulary we have suit for men and women if it has trousers, like if under the blazer or the jacket there are trousers, and if you have a two-piece that involves a skirt, so blazer and skirt, then it is called a tailleur. So we just have it's flipped in the sense that when it is with the skirt, we have the differentiating word.
Okay.
If it is a pantsuit, it is just a suit.
Yeah.
Whoever is wearing it, they are wearing a suit. So,
oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah, these things, it's weird how these things flip, and we know they flip because we can look back in fashion history and see that men used to wear this and women used to wear that, but people always treat it as if it's not just gendered fashion. It is like an inbuilt. This is
the natural thing.
Yeah, it's like genitals. It's like, oh yeah, women have boobs and also skirts, and that's the same.
Yeah, unfortunately, and fashion is like the most direct product of a society you can have. It is almost like a thumbprint of the society you are studying. You can see socioeconomic and other influences on the way things are on the way fabric is built around the person's body that lives in that society.
Oh,
It has
interesting.
nothing to do with gender. In this, not gender, it has nothing to do with sex. Like
Yeah.
whether it's male, female, intersex, trans, or whoever, like non-binary. Well, non-binary, I think, is more of a social thing, but I cannot speak for that. I don't know. But it has nothing to do with anything except how society wants to code them. That's all there is.
Yeah. What really shits me is when people justify it and they say, yes, but women have to wear skirts in order to have like air circulating in certain regions and avoid like vaginal
Oh my God. I have not
infections
heard
and
of
yeast and stuff. Yeah, that's why they shouldn't spread their legs when they sit down and stuff. And like,
What?
just, yeah, you have these justifications. It just comes
Oh,
up
wow.
whenever people try and when they don't understand the real causes for things, so they try and make up causes.
I've never heard this either.
Yeah,
Me
it becomes
neither.
medical.
The only justification I have heard for, from very extremely conservative people is that God has ordained it.
Yes. Well, did God like ordain something very different 150 years ago? Because that wasn't the case back then. God seems to
He wants to change it up a bit, okay?
Yeah, he produces his own version of Cleo or Vogue or something like that.
Yeah.
In this season, I'm declaring that men should wear pink high heels and women should wear cones on their heads. Get to it, or you're all going to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really sad when you hear this kind of justification because it is, and I will die on this hill. If like this kind of justification is proof that someone is uneducated in social sciences.
Yeah.
It's just good that.
Really? Yeah. I mean, you look at the. Okay, so it's yoga pants. Is what they call them, which is the current version of leggings for women. So leggings sort of came in as in a big way in I think the 90s, from women not wearing leggings at all, and suddenly every woman was wearing leggings in the 90s, and that sort of faded away, and then it's now the version of leggings for women are yoga pants. And that's the big thing. And you don't see men wearing these things except in certain contexts, like as a kind of skin tight
in ballet. Yeah.
Well, in ballet always, but like people men who aren't in ballet will wear them for like various sporting activities. They'll have like
cycling or whatever.
Yeah. Swimming, there can be versions of that, but they wouldn't wear them like as a normal fashion item, as normal clothing to like work or something like that. It's only in these specific kind of contexts. But you look back in history, of course, we see men wearing these, skin tight leggings in the 17th century. It's very popular then, and that was all the rage for men. You wouldn't see women ever wearing them, like ever showing their legs, but the men were like all about showing the legs. And then if you go back even further, like I think it's like the 14th century, that was a big thing back then, like men wearing the like the super tight leggings. And
in Italy, right?
It was all over Western Europe. It was like men wearing. It started out wearing like in the 13th century, with men wearing these leggings made of wool, so they're stretching, they're tight, going all the way up to the crotch, and you'd wear a cod piece to sort of show off your crotch. And then after that, you had the leggings, but also the little puffy pantaloon things.
Yeah.
The crotch. then that, like, Blackadder in that Blackadder the
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
He's wearing those. So yeah, that was a big fashion. It was like literally something that we would, in today's fashion, we would consider effeminate, but that was just normal masculinity back then. That was just everyone wore that. Your peasants, it wasn't just the high class people wearing this stuff. The peasants would all have their skin tight leggings. That was just the normal fashion.
Yeah, absolutely.
To show off your beautiful manly legs.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays,
the beautiful crotch, and the beautiful crotch as well.
Yes, exactly. And this was the thing, and it always changes too. It's not always, and people will go, "Oh yeah," but it's always about the crotch. It's always about that because they had the cod pieces and stuff like that. But no, into the 19th century, the fashion was to have these kind of like baggy breeches. So these things are like buttoned at the knees, but the crotches are disgusting. They're like not properly sewn. It's just this baggy thing. It looks like the man's almost got a giant baggy vagina inside his crotch. It's just disgustingly like blob, 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 blob. There's no shape to it at all. It's I'm not saying vaginas are disgusting. The trousers are disgusting. It's There's no kind of structure to the front of the crotch, and that was the fashion in the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
It was so it's not always about the crotch. These things always change. That's the point. It's always in flux, and there's no kind of like unifying theme all the way through. Like idiots were trying to pretend, yes, but the unifying theme is no.
Yeah,
the unifying theme is change.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's interesting about this topic, right? Is that how often and how, relatively speaking, quickly this changes, constantly goes back and forth, but yet how seriously people take it.
Yes.
How rigid people are. Yeah.
Exactly, Baines. Exactly. People, become supportive of it.
Yeah, to a point, there is a reason. I'm not saying that it should be that way. I'm just saying that there is a reason why there is so much heated debate and even a push to force people to dress certain ways and stuff like that, because throughout the history of human civilization, clothes were used to quickly assess who the other person was in terms of class, often in terms of profession, in terms of even political affiliation in certain eras. And there was so much that people expect to be able to tell with a glance from what you are wearing, that when they can't, they lose their shit. Sorry for that, but they do.
Oh, yeah, right.
Very true, Tans. Very true. I mean, there's the sumptuary laws in various stages in Britain, and I'm sure different countries had their own versions of this, which was that you had laws about what you can wear, saying, oh, if you're not aristocracy, you can't wear this kind of fashion, or if you're not it was aristocracy based, because it was like so very rich people, especially merchants, would want to try and imitate the aristocracy. So then people couldn't tell who was aristocracy and who wasn't. And of course, a lot of poor people would try and also emulate the styles of the aristocracy, which in many cases would mean that, very much like today, today's fashion, where we have rappers trying to pretend they're rich by buying, Louis Vuitton this and, whatever, these very high end fashion labels, and going into debt because of that, because they just want to look rich. The same thing happened back in the medieval times, where you had a lot of poor people spending enormous amounts of money on furs and things, and very expensive fashions, trying to look rich, but they would go into debt because of it. So the sumptuary laws weren't just about enforcing that the poor people looked poor. It was also about maintaining a bit of fixing social issues in a certain way, because it's not worth it if people are going into debt just to look rich.
Yeah, but I don't think it was out of concern. It was mostly to keep, the social strata separate and be able to know how to treat everyone, even when you see them on the street. So that's why you would have dress codes that were enforced by law, and you could be a very rich, like a middle class person, but you would have very fine clothes in the style that was allowed for you, but you wouldn't be able to wear, certain things, and
Well,
so
you're
on.
not allowed to wear an ermine cape if you're
Yeah,
not
for example,
the king or the emperor.
yeah.
So yes, but yeah, today, like I say, we have the same thing. We don't have laws against it, but we have very poor people. Like often, we have the rappers and stuff like that, but also the people who like that kind of music that often tends to have a lot more kind of cachet with people in lower socioeconomic classes and groups and stuff like that. And people want to emulate the styles of what they see as being rich. So you've got like the branded Louis Vuitton luggage and I don't know what all the other brands are, Coco Chanel or something like this. So
Yeah, Gucci,
there you go, Gucci, all the rest of it. Especially it's so important to have the brand written on it, so people
which
can
is,
tell.
I hate that. Yeah.
Really rich people who really are rich, not just they made like a lot of money selling rap, don't show the labels. They won't show the brand. They'll just wear something that you can tell cost a lot of money because of the cut and the style. That's the difference.
There is also another thing, and I'm going to quickly tell an anecdote from my mom's experience around the 80s, somewhere around the 80s. So during the 80s in Greece, there was so-called socialism. There was no socialism, but that's what the propaganda wanted people to think, that, the social classes had collapsed. We all were able to have whatever, the top tier rich people could have, nonsense like this. It was like the 80s were the era where poor people were fooled into believing that they were rich. But that's a different discussion. Anyway, so there was this wave of people wearing specific brands, thinking this, and one of them was Lacoste, with a little crocodile.
Oh yes.
So I remember where, like, my mom was not that kind of person. She always had, and she still has, this thing of collecting items that she likes and are timeless in a sense, and wearing them across the ages in a sense. We have in our closet, we have items that are 30 and 40 years old and still good as new, and we still wear them, to give you an idea. So she had a pair of shoes that were a very specific brand to Greece, from a very specific shoe shop that was for the high class people. And mom had a pair of shoes from there that she had really liked and she had saved up to buy and blah, blah, blah. And she wore those shoes in an outing to Kifisia, which is like a high class suburb. And at the time, people went to have coffee and stuff. And we were at the shop for this Lacoste thing before going to coffee. And this other person that was actually from that top tier class looked at the shoes and said, "Oh my God, I recognize them. They are this brand. I had them 5 years ago." So the shoes didn't have any like brand symbol on them. And what does this mean? that these people are trained one way or the other to recognize fashion items without the labels on, and they also recognize whether you are current or not. So, at least to a very big extent. And yeah. So yeah, this lady was trying to passive aggressively tell my mom that she was out of fashion, and mom was like, "Okay, I don't care."
Yeah, I like them. That's what I wear.
Yeah, I like them.
Your point? It's meaningless.
Exactly. She was like, "Okay, I literally don't care if you had these shoes before I did."
Yeah.
Anyway, but it was a an indication. I mean, we discussed it afterwards from a totally socio-economic kind of uh, viewpoint. Or actually, my parents did because I was a kid and I was just listening to them. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, you cannot fool the actually rich people. The eye is trained to immediately pick up certain things. So don't bother. And it's not really it's an exercise in futility, and you are going to lose money, and that's all that you are going to do. So, yeah.
Although that said, these fashions they're driven by a certain element in society where, I don't know, that there's interest and there's things change, and at the moment this is the kind of the lower socio-economic part of society where this this friction that happens, this cultural friction. So it generates a certain kind of music and culture, and at the moment it's with these people trying to pretend they're rich. So with they're showing that they take trips in Learjets and flashing like huge wads of cash as if any rich person would do that. But because they're doing that and that becomes popular, then the rich people in that kind of age set who are interested in pop culture and the newer things emulate it. So it does kind of go backwards and forwards in a weird way. So you have these people who are already rich trying to pretend they're rich in this kind of these stupid ways.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true as well. I just don't know. I mean, because even not even. I mean, if anyone that has read Jane Austen knows that the aristocracy also has stratification within its class. It's not. They are not all equal. So I don't know who engages in that and to what extent. And I wish I did, because the aristocracy is one of the most under-researched social stratum, and because they don't like to be researched. So.
There's less of them as well, so it's not as easy to generalize.
Yeah. Yeah, that too.
They're a very small group. So there's it's not only gendered fashion, it's class fashion and caste fashion
as well. Yeah.
It all kind of factors into it. So yeah, trousers is an interesting thing, or pants. We do think that popularly we think of it suddenly as just coming into a thing like in the 1960s. That was it. That's when women were able to wear trousers. But as we said, as we sort of mentioned, that has always on and off been a thing. Although it seems to be it's more for men to wear trousers or trouser things, and it's more for women to wear skirts, at least in the West. And but as we say, there's always been times where it's sort of they've come about. But say in, I don't know, in the kind of time of the Roman Empire, and even the Greek ancient Greek states and in Egyptian times. We have the difference is everybody's wearing dresses, but the male dresses are shorter. That's the difference.
Yeah. Or not necessarily shorter, they are in a different cut. And that is where the gendered differentiation comes in. Like, for example, in ancient Greece, not in certain eras of ancient Greece, because fashion changed a lot over the centuries.
Hundreds of years worth of time,
But let's say, I think like in classical Greece or thereof, around there, you had certain long styles of quote-unquote dresses that were exclusively for men. And you can see those in the statues of certain philosophers and orators and stuff. They would wear the long version. So older men, longer skirts, shorter men, younger men, shorter skirts. So that was a thing. And of course, warriors got to wear the short ones for obvious reasons. You don't want to trip over anything.
Well, you've got to show off your legs if you're a warrior, don't you? I mean,
yeah.
You got to show how pretty you are to intimidate the other guys.
Yeah.
Look at my thighs, babe. You can't compete.
Do you even lift, bro?
You impress people with your twerking abilities, normal stuff the warriors do.
Yeah. Well, there is this account, of the Spartans that somehow in the current day they code for the uber masculine like prototype. Everyone who is buying into this, I'm a man, that sort of thing, going the Andrew Tate way. They like 300 style men, which I don't take back the way I phrased it. But anyway, Spartans back in the day really liked their hair care, and they had very long hair that was not short.
Yeah.
And, as a matter of fact, the one that had the crop, like the crew cut, was the woman. When she got married, she had to shave her hair off.
Wow.
And resemble a boy. Make of that what you think. The Spartan bride had to shave off her hair, her full head of hair, dress as a guy, sneak into the army barracks to find her husband. And that's where they consummated the marriage. And there's that.
Right.
That was part of their tradition, just the sneaking.
Yes, that was how. Yeah, that was the ancient Spartan marriage, and it was a whole thing. And the ritual happened first at the home with the mom, who prepared her daughter to be married by shearing her hair off, and that was a thing. Or I think maybe she got quote unquote kidnapped. I mean, there was some shenanigans happening, but she definitely had to look like a boy.
Right. Well, I mean, like we say, these cultures, they lasted for a very long time, and things changed over that time. And
Spartans were pretty much monolithic in the sense that they didn't really change. They changed very little in these traditions.
Until most of them were helots in the end, weren't they? That was one of the things that happened.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of ran out of purebred Spartans.
Yeah. But we don't talk about that. But what I'm trying to say is that they were, supposedly, and I mean, nobody questioned them as being, very formidable warriors, for sure. but manly men would not be engaging in what the Spartans did. I mean, manly quote unquote men of today. They would find a lot of things that the ancient Spartans did very emasculating. So
Yeah, these things change. Gendered fashion is fluid. It changes over the
very.
centuries. Yeah. It really, really does. Well, actually, on a different subject, because we're web comicers and we do web comics and we give our characters gendered fashions for good or ill. So, Baines, when you decided to dress your characters for Chatterbox, how
Yeah.
did you sort of come to that? Because they have very specific gendered fashion, but they are not kind of typically gendered fashions in a way. I mean, they sort of are, but they're not.
Interesting. I mean, I haven't updated it in so long. Let me think.
Okay, so one of them is wearing a yellow jumpsuit and the other one's wearing a kind of red jumpsuit, pretty much, from memory.
Right. One is red, one is green. I just like the
Is it
visual
green?
of
It's
that.
not yellow.
Yeah, red and I went with red and green for the two. I thought it looked good. As the comic developed, into more of a sort of a spy, secret agent kind of thing. I thought about, am I going to be using these uniforms very often? I mean, that's what they are that's what they were in the thumbnail, though.
Yeah.
They do show up in those work clothes at a certain point. This sort of one piece tight red thing, and then this one piece tight green thing to kind of contrast each other, along with their heights that contrast each other, their personalities contrast. With CB being the more rough and ready, very tomboyish, if I can use that word, scruffy, getting her hands dirty kind of thing, and Lily, her partner, being much more poised and kind of classically beautiful, classically feminine, and other stuff that if I ever do get to updating it again, we'll see more about their private lives that are sort of contrast each other, and makes them interesting best friend group, I think, a best friend duo. So I just decided based on kind of before I went to 3D, like just based on doodling and what I thought looked good and what captured a fun personality for each, and then just kind of expanded it in my notes. And I don't know if this is a good answer,
but there are things that would have been considered male gendered fashion back in the day, like having a full body jumpsuit. And that became like, say, in the 1960s, that very much sort of switched over and became, oh my god, this is an uber sexy thing for a woman to wear a jumpsuit with trousers and like in full leather or something like this,
right? And
that became an iconic kind of fashion for a sexy woman to wear, especially in what was that TV series, The Avengers, I think, with Emma Peel.
Right, way back to then, yeah. And I mean, I was thinking 90s comics with the femme fatale superhero characters and female spies who would wear that stuff, but it goes back to Emma Peel. True.
Catwoman, even.
Yeah, 60s Catwoman. Batman, yeah. Definitely.
And that became very much this is a female thing, wearing a tight jumpsuit. You have the whole you unzip it and you have the bust showing, the cleavage.
Yeah. Or a boob window.
Yes.
Yeah, once in a while you get that.
How are the boobs going to see out if they don't have a window?
Of course, male superheroes have it as well, in comics anyway. Much on TV. Superman and Batman and all the various characters have suits that are so tight you can see every tiny muscle.
Indeed. So
basically they're naked. We might as well. I mean, they're basically naked.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally naked. But the history of that is quite weird. So back in the day when, the superheroes were formed, it's this late 1930s. So they're based on, they're meant to be really strong guys. But they're based on strong guys who were in normal culture, which were strongmen, circus strongmen, who dressed like that. They wore full-body leotards with underpants over the top, like Superman and Batman. Because
that's right. That's where that look came from.
Yeah, it was. These outfits were made of wool and they sagged at the crotch, so you needed underpants to keep them from sagging. And yeah, that's what the look was based on. Yeah, strong. So the image was meant to evoke someone with muscles and someone with strength that people knew.
Right.
So yeah, that's where that came from. It's interesting.
How about your Pinky TA fashions?
Well, she was meant to evoke manga and anime characters. So that's why she was developed back in the late 90s. I think that's where I developed her. So she was based on the idea of that the small female character who's dressed in a stylized version of a military uniform, but it's super sexy, and can be very, very powerful in certain ways, and best gigantic obstacles, even though she's a small sexy woman. So it was based on that idea that had come from manga and anime, and that's why she's got that outfit. And it was my own development of army trousers and stuff like that, but it had various influences. Julie from the Max, I think in the first episode or the first couple of pages of her comic, if you've ever seen this comic, she's wearing jeans that are kind of suspended from a belt. I mean, they're not exactly as they are in Pinky TA. They're suspended at the back and the front and stuff like that, and Pinky's are only suspended at the front. But yeah, that was a big influence. So yeah, basically a stylized male military uniform that is made super sexy, and of course extremely gendered to be feminine because of that, because you wouldn't show a man wearing like his underpants showing and a pair of army trousers worn as like gartered chaps. It would send a very different image. And so yeah, that's an incredibly gendered fashion. Very much so. Good point, Baines.
Right.
And it's the same with Cece. She's wearing like denim hot pants with kind of bike shorts underneath and a heart patch sewn on the crotch, and this little purple shirt tied across the boobs. All this kind of stuff is incredibly gendered fashion. So that was just meant to show that this character is very sexy and sexual, because that's just what I like drawing. But yeah, that's it's very indicative of a gendered thing, and I wouldn't draw my male characters like that, because it would send in sort of image, or not an image, but it would send a message that I didn't want to communicate about the male characters. So it's a good point. Very good point. And yeah, I started that back in the 90s when fashion and gender attitudes were quite different. We did not think of trans or gender neutral in the ways we do now. We were still more hung up on people being in their gender roles back in the 90s. Way more so than we are now.
It wasn't as mainstream.
Yeah, exactly. This was more alternative culture. Like now it is way more mainstream, way more acceptable. So yeah, that's it. Pinky TA is a comic from the 90s in a lot of ways.
So are my comics in a lot of ways, because that's where my mind is still, I guess, in some way.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? Looking at that, the way you can judge a thing that is from its time. It's like the way we've got all these superheroes, like you mentioned, they're basically drawn naked because that's the way that style mutated towards. But you look at characters like, I don't know, Wonder Woman with her particular style, and that is a very, very gendered style, isn't it? Especially when you compare that to later female characters like Captain Marvel, and that's way less of a gendered outfit. I mean, it still is gendered because she's showing the bust off with a tight outfit, and the wider hips, narrow waist, and all that kind of stuff. But the style of the clothes is just wearing the leotard like the male version. But say Wonder Woman is very much still based on that 1940s kind of sexy bondage outfit that was developed way back then. She's wearing the bloomers and the waist girdle and her top, carrying her lasso, the little crown tiara kind of thing. That's very much that's the 1940s kind of idea of a powerful woman.
Yeah.
Very different now. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say that her outfit, I would posit. I mean, she has had so many iterations of that same style of outfit that is iconic to her. But I would say that what was considered like super sexy pin-up level, almost dominatrix kind of thing in the 40s, now is quote unquote normal stuff a woman would wear.
Yeah, it's true.
Good point. Yeah, and various times that outfit has been basically a sports outfit for women.
Yeah,
and now it's I don't know. You could wear it clubbing.
Yeah, basically, or you could even wear it, in the mornings or to go jogging or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you can wear your flag that way, but the items themselves of clothing are not as racy or hot as they used to be.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's a great point. I mean, you do see comic book, like things you would only see in comic books, now you see on humans walking around.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And in Without Moonlight, I had to adhere to the norms of fashion of Greece at the time, but it was a very weird time, like an aberration, a distortion, because there was the occupation, because there were cells of insurgents here and there, and what have you. So fashion was warped, not too much, but enough. And I don't know if that is at all noticeable, but for example, if you take let's compare Martha and Iris.
And Iris, yeah.
So Martha is very much a cis female lady. She comes from, like, before the war. She was pretty much dressing her gender, effeminate and not too freely, because she's not that type. She doesn't really like too many curly cues, but she still likes female fashion. However, because she's now more focused in carrying guns and and sniping people, and she doesn't have time or money to invest in that kind of fashion. Her fashion is whatever she had from before and practical stuff that she needs in order to carry out her missions. So she becomes more genderless in what she wears. Not very much, but enough. I mean, there are sequences where she wears coveralls, black coveralls, and they are trousers, okay? And nobody bats an eyelid, even though we are talking like a very conservative, gendered society. But nobody cares that she is wearing trousers because she went out to snipe people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, she's working, doing a job.
Exactly.
An outfit that,
Yeah.
it's practical.
Yeah. So, nobody would expect her to wear a skirt to go, find a nest and be very quiet and just shoot people. um, yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't be criticizing. Why are you in a dress? Oh my god,
Yeah.
society's breaking down.
Yeah. So there's that. Whereas Iris really needs to play up her gender because she has weaponized her gender a lot in order to do what she needs to do. So she wears very female coding outfits. She's not once in pants, and her hair is always perfectly coiffed for the fashion of the day, and she's wearing very like a feminine clothing, and fashion
Yeah,
perfect. Um, so yeah.
she has to code very specifically, like you say,
Mm-hmm.
because that's her occupation. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the Nazis, of course. So that it's again a different look. They're wearing a uniform, which of course you'd expect people in an organized military to be, but it's an incredibly conservative uniform. A lot of people don't realize. No, it wasn't a fashion style invented by Hugo Boss. He just had a factory that just was contracted to produce a certain small amount of outfits. This was an old style anachronistic uniform that everybody else had worn. Like the Americans and the English and everybody else had worn those uniforms, but they'd quit wearing them after the First World War. The Germans still had them because they were so conservative. And yeah, that was basically an old-fashioned style outfit that they were still sticking with. Not all of them, because they did have some newer kind of
the SS were very the SS got the new designs,
camouflage and stuff like that.
yeah.
So that was in a certain way that did sort of come about, yes, but mainly they were very anachronistic and it was an incredibly old-fashioned outfit that everybody else had stopped wearing after the First World War, but no. The Germans had just dug in harder and done their own newer versions of First World War outfits. Yeah. And so you've got the Resistance wearing their particular styles, and that's like you're saying, it's they can't focus on newer fashions, so their outfits are based on, I don't know, rural outfits and stuff like this, or stuff that needs to be
They are a mix and match kind of thing. Like whoever has whatever they have, they wear. So many are veterans from the Greek army, so they wear their uniforms basically, or whatever has survived from the uniforms, because a lot were super worn out anyway by the time the army was disbanded. And many just wear their clothes and just have over like a jacket or whatever, just to have something between them and the strap of the rifle or whatever. And that's why they are all very hairy, in the sense that nobody sits down to have, okay, now is the time to have our fashionable haircuts. and
to fit in with the day. Get the old Brill cream and
less so in the cities. That's why you have clean-shaven people in the cities. That's why Basil didn't have a beard. He had the chance to to save. But the reason that his hair is a mess is that he just can't be bothered to go to a barber.
Yeah.
um,
The war has cut down on the hair cream supplies. So
Yeah.
That's the best one. And you go deep into character and like what their lives would be like, what their priorities are. And
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh my god, I did a photo shoot the other day, a 1920s photo shoot, and I dressed up in my 1920s the gear, the top hat and everything like that, you know, full on top hat and tails.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that, you can't dress up in that outfit and not style your hair, so you have to style it with the cream. And oh my god, that stuff is so hard to get out once it's in. I had to wash my hair like twice to get rid of that disgusting, greasy stuff.
and like always, you can see. I mean, we focus a lot on the insurgents, so we don't really see the variation, at least in volume 1. In volume 2, it will be a lot more apparent. But the people in the cities have stratification, and it depends a lot on where they stand in relation to the occupation. So if you are not collaborating, you have no money. So you are stuck with whatever you had before the war, and that's it.
So you had social stratifications with gender stratification and ethnic or nationalistic stratification as well, because you know, your Germans are in their own style, just based on their uniform. So it's more occupational stratification, I would say, rather than nationalistic, because civilian Germans are just going to wear what the civilian Greeks are going to wear.
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, oh my god, we have very specific stratification in that. You know, actually, speaking about Pinky TA again, when, you know, I said like Pinky and Cece are very much in, you know, gendered outfits that show their sexy females, but ironically, all my other characters, whether they're male or female or whatever, wear neutral outfits. That's like, because this is basically a war comic, so everybody's like pretty much like often in a military, whether it's the same one Pinky's in or not, and that consists of male and female characters, and they're all wearing the same outfits. So yeah, that's a bit of a weird choice that I've got such strongly gendered outfits for the main characters, and it becomes irrelevant for everyone else.
Because they are the backdrop.
Well, it was more like the choice I made when I started the comic, that it only matters for Pinky and Cece and whatever other characters I pick. But for the other ones, I didn't want gender to be a thing. You know, I didn't. It's not that I didn't want gender to be a thing. It's that I didn't want, say, okay, so in the army, in the navy or whatever that I've got in this comic, I didn't want there to be a kind of the modern sexist separation that we have. So even though this is a comic that depicts this kind of like pretend 1920s with my fake Crimean Empire, whatever I call my people, I developed my own kind of alternative world, as you do in comics. And part of that was that it didn't matter what gender you are when you joined the military. You could be officers or whatever, it didn't matter. So yeah, that was just a choice I made when I created it. Yeah. It's just a bit of my own weirdness. So yeah, that was Pinky TA. But say for Bottomless Waitress, again, we have incredibly gendered outfits, because it's called waitress for a start, not waiter, not serving person, waitress, and they're wearing their bottomless outfits, you know, that very much show all those sexual characteristics, busts and whatever. They're all on very obviously displayed. The women are wearing pink dresses, for goodness sake. So again, that's a modern gendered indication in clothing. So oh my god, these things are just very, very strongly indicated. But that's only for the main characters. Any other character we have, it doesn't matter. Like, we could have a man in a dress in this comic and it would be fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it only matters for those specific characters. I mean, we've got Nikki, the gigantic lesbian character who's, she's wears jeans and a wife beater. But like any of the other characters, it really doesn't. The genderization of their clothing is irrelevant. It only matters for those specific characters, which is interesting. And
yeah, beyond that, you would just
why.
think of the overall environment, like the small town. It's possibly a kind of a desert town, maybe. And what that would mean. Probably a poorer kind of area, probably.
Yeah, lower socioeconomic, very much so lower socioeconomic
status.
Yeah, we don't have any rich people in this comic so far. Maybe Wilfie probably comes from a more wealthy background, being university educated and being a researcher.
Yeah, he might be.
So he would have had to have a lot of money to get his qualifications. But who knows? Maybe got a scholarship.
Yeah, hard to say.
So I have a question. If you had, another, a male waitress came on to the crew of the diner, they wouldn't be bottomless.
I think they would be. I think they'd be wearing exactly the same outfit as the ladies.
Exactly. So is it gendered though?
Well, it is at the moment because we only have women.
Okay.
So you can't say but if a male was coming, like, he would be wearing the same outfit because we don't have any males. So we can't say that. Like, yeah, sure, if one did come, he would, and then we could say it, but we can't at the moment.
Yeah. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. I mean, it would be good if we had that as our get out of jail free card, but not yet. I've got to get Baines to write one in.
Speaking of writing anything on that, I got to get on that, man, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, you should.
We'll have.
Yeah.
We have to have Craig wearing the outfit. We have to have him dragoon into being a waitress.
Maybe, yeah. We'll figure it out off the air.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now that I'm making my fantasy comic, and I am not naming it yet because it has a name, but I haven't launched it yet. But I get to create my own fashion again. For it really feels liberating because I don't need to abide by 1940s standards. So yeah, and the fashion is going to be, it is going to be gendered, but not fully in a way that is expected, I guess, because the army that exists in this comic has men and women, and they wear the same outfit, let's say.
Okay. Yeah.
However, formal versions of this outfit is gendered. So when they are not in gear, when they are not in their practice gear or in their field gear, let's say, and they have their dress outfits, so that means their formal outfits, then it is gendered.
Okay, interesting.
Slightly, not completely.
Why is that?
Because there is a certain division of women that can only do a very, like, they are the only ones that can do a very specific thing in the army. And this is like they show it off in their dress outfit. So they accentuate that, okay, we are the ones that can do this thing and none other can in this way. Like it's like a status thing, a flex, if you like. So yeah, that's why.
Interesting. Oh, look forward to seeing
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing in reality as well. You know, there are, even when we have like non-gendered fashion, and oh my god, there have been times in history where people have gone, okay, we actually want to create non-gender, like in the French Revolution during that time.
And
there was a major move.
Communistic China as well. I mean, the beginnings.
Yeah, people don't realize that, like, way back in the 19th century, late 18th century, there was a major move to have the men and women in France just wearing black trousers and black shirts, and that's what everybody would wear as the normal style for everybody. But yeah, that didn't take off. that was going to be the thing. But anyway, even when we have like non-gendered stuff, gender still creeps in, just because of practical stuff. Because like men and women, we do have certain biological differences. So this was a thing. Like when people especially talk about armor, and people talk about medieval armor, say, yeah, if men and women wore medieval armor, they wouldn't have like the visible like boobs on the armor, because that's just will catch swords and stuff like that. And then you sort of take it into modern day with, say, male and female police officers, and they wear the bulletproof vests. And unfortunately, that kind of like idea of non-gendered fashion for that hits a huge brick wall, because you can't stuff a woman into a man's like bulletproof vest and have no issues, because there are certain things like, because you've got that extra tissue there, it can cause severe issues in that it can cause the vest to ride up and like get in the way of her neck and her breathing, or it can like be too tight around the chest and be painful, because certain like bust size is very different on many different women. Like some women have almost like flat chest, some women have very very large kind of breasts. So you have this thing can be very tight and be very hot and very sweaty. So you really have to have like specifically made vests for women that are different from the men. So this is like a very real difference.
Now that you mention it, in my experience as a Red Cross rescuer, so not we are volunteers, but we are trained volunteers. You have to go through Red Cross school for a year and pass exams and stuff like that. And then you are issued your uniform, which is, we in Greece they call us ladybugs because it's very red. But anyway, the problem with that though is that it is tailored to the male body. So this uniform, it comes in certain sizes, so that it can also fit to ladies that are smaller. However, it is very uncomfortable in certain areas, and I don't mean the chest because it is quite baggy, but the pants are the problem. because they don't take into account the female pelvis as well. And it can be freaking tight, even for, the very skinny ladies. Um, I don't know how they managed it. Like, it's supposed to be a baggy set of trousers. How? I mean, I don't know. But it really hits us in weird ways, and it is very uncomfortable for women. And we have been trying to get the Greek. This is for the Greek Red Cross. Okay, I don't know how they do it in other Red Cross um, communities, but in the Greek Red Cross, all the ladies are saying, please design the same uniform, but give it a little bit of room here, and do certain things. And they
Mhm.
are saying, like, suck it up. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the thing, yeah, because when you've got those biological differences, and of course not everybody fits strictly into a binary difference
No.
with biological stuff. It's a bit of a spectrum, but mostly the main average is that women are certainly conform to this kind of shape, and men certainly conform more to that kind of shape, and that's the way you've got to do things when you're designing for a great amount of people. You go for averages.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so for the women's trousers versus the men, so men are pretty straight when it comes to going down from the torso to the hips, torso, the waist, the hips, and the thighs. So it's pretty straight. Whereas for women, there's a lot more curves, basically. Like, the waist tends to be a little bit thinner, hips tend to be a bit wider, and then thighs often quite a bit wider than men's thighs. There's more variation to the form, basically. And trousers that don't take that into account are going to be incredibly uncomfortable. I remember when I was a teen, and like, did you used to have this Baines where you buy jeans, right? Back in the 90s or back in the late 80s, you buy jeans. And the only styles were really unisex for jeans back then. That was just the thing.
Yeah.
And I used to find often the jeans did not ever fit me properly because, yeah, they were unisex, but often they were like the female cut for some reason. They would have really baggy thighs, and they just never fit right,
I don't remember them being unisex, actually, now that I think about it. There was
Okay,
guys.
you may be more lucky.
Yeah, there were guys' jeans and women's jeans, and I think they were a different cut. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, you're more lucky that way.
Yeah, I must have been lucky. I mean, I had trouble. They never fit like perfectly and stuff. Usually, we're not all classically. Like, I have one leg that's like 6 inches long. The other one is like 4 feet long, and it's very weird. I don't know, it's out of proportion for some reason. But
I'm surprised you could find anything to fit those enormous genitals too.
wow, that was always a
Jesus.
problem. I would tell the sales lady, I'm going to need accommodation. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. No one ever believed it when I said that, and they were right.
Oh, goodness me. But yeah, when it comes down to clothing, like, I mean, clothing does not have to be completely gendered. It does not have to be like women in pink, men in blue, women in dresses, men in trousers. So you could both wear like blue suits, but still even so, there are gender differences because of the simple biological differences.
Sure.
So, but that does not have to be extremely obvious. That's what we're saying. Things can be minimal. So if you're designing characters like, okay, for a fantasy comic or a sci-fi comic where you don't have to go by current gendered norms, because especially if it's sci-fi, you're creating your own gendered norms then. So you can really decide what you want to do. So you could go for, I don't know, or just a simple reversal. So you just have all the men in dresses. All the women in.
I was going to mention Star Trek to Tens when I know she hasn't seen Star Trek really, but on the original series, like all the guys wore their sort of shirt and pants uniform. The women all wore mini skirts. Apparently, the actresses even preferred that because it was very flattering on them to have these uniforms. But when the Next Generation came along, they actually had several male characters in skirts.
Yep, in the mini skirts.
Yeah,
which they did not stick with. So that was a choice they made.
I was going to ask you, Oz, if you remembered that. I was going to tell Tans about that. Star Trek would have guys, male crew members, in skirts on Star Trek The Next Generation. Not main characters. Awesome. You just see them walking by in the background, and then it kind of went away after the first episode or two, I guess.
So their choice was to go, okay, so we want to show some continuity with the original series. But the thing is, so they're showing some continuity, but they're also having the men and women wearing the same uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
So not gendered uniforms. So in the original series, like Bane says, the females, the ladies all wore mini skirts, well, mini dresses, not mini skirts, a mini dress,
right.
And that was the style. So in the Next Generation series, the choice was to have everybody in trousers and these tight lycra tops, and that didn't matter if you're male or female, you all wore the same uniform. But they wanted to show continuity with the original series. So someone has to wear dresses. So they had, lower ranked male characters wearing mini dresses.
Oh, that's good.
Just because, but that they didn't stick with that. They
well, for whatever reason, it went. I could imagine Gene Roddenberry wanting to be progressive in that way, like to push things forward and change them. He probably did. And then more conservative heads went out, probably. I don't know this for a fact. I'm just kind of guessing.
I would expect someone to be scandalized and clutch their pearls.
And just worry about the audience reaction, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we don't want to take that risk. It'll put people off.
Well, when you think about it, it didn't make sense anymore because then you've got like everybody, all your main characters wearing the same clothes, but then you've got these ones wearing the mini dresses, and then, well, why doesn't Captain Picard ever wear a mini dress? Why? You'd have to expand the mini dress thing in order to have it make sense, rather than just showing an occasional male character wearing it.
You could just say, just assume it was an option. That officers had the option.
Yeah. Or you could explain it that it was code for a very specific function. These people that work in this thing and do this wear the mini dress.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bottomless waitress did.
Yeah. Or like I could see, for example, if I don't know, maybe in the infirmary or whatever, somewhere where they would, for whatever reason, if I sat down to think about it, I could create some psycho bubble or scientific bullshit to explain why they needed to wear mini skirts or mini dresses or dresses in the sick bay, and then I would have everyone there.
Oh.
And
you know what? I'd have the security guys wearing the mini dresses because maybe they're kind of like showing like they're ancient Greek warriors, ancient Roman warriors. So I'd have the and plus you're subverting the idea of the more masculine job being in a traditionally feminine gendered outfit, and in that way you're saying but it's not a masculine job, it's just a job, and It's not a feminine outfit. It's just an outfit.
Yeah.
So then that, sort of forces that to be turned on its head in people's eyes. So that's the way you should do it.
Yeah, that works.
Have it. Yeah. Stick your security guys, your soldiers in the mini dresses.
Yeah. Yeah. In my fantasy comic, everyone wears dresses basically, of various sorts, except for the farmers. All the farmers, male or female, wear leggings because nobody wants like nettle up their nether regions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, yeah. Gendered clothing is as we say, it changes, and our ideas about gendered clothing in the past sometimes can be wrong. I mean, there's the whole idea of the Scottish people wearing kilts, so that was a fashion that began in, like, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I think it's maybe like the 15th century or something like that. It's a lot more modern than people think. You know, your Braveheart characters didn't kind of wear kilts in that kind of way. And that came about as like a specific fashion choice to start wearing kilts as part of like a revolutionary group who were like fighting against the British being in control. And it wasn't like kilts and in plaids or tartans. It's orange style, and this was an outfit that they specifically chose to be the outfit of their revolutionary group. And it took off, and it became the cultural fashion of these people. But the whole tartan kind of thing, that was much, much older. Like your ancient Celtic people wore tartan clothes, but they were trousers. They never wore kilts. This was like you've got Romans wearing like little mini dresses.
For sure.
And they commented specifically on the fact that these Celts wore trousers, and they thought it was weird.
And barbarians. Like these barbarians are
they wear trousers. So yeah, it's not an ancient thing the way we think it is. So kilts are rather modern in terms of Scottish history, which is something that not many people realize. Just something to notice, something to think about. So yeah, it's not like everything you think about fashion and history is wrong. It's just that there are a lot more complexities to it. I think that's the way to think about it. Not the cracked article idea of whatever you think about it's wrong. Ha ha ha. Let me tell you the real story. It's just that there's a lot more complexity to things.
And
we often like
it's a lot more, and there are certain things gendered, yes, of course, but some of them are practical in nature. They evolved into what they were for practical reasons. Like I'm thinking of the corset, for example, which is considered like restricting women and stuff, and that was not the case at all. First of all, you wouldn't be able to wear the stuff that you were supposed to wear without one. You would bulk under the weight a lot. And of course, and you probably wouldn't, like, it wouldn't fit on you the way it's supposed to fit. Pretty much how you need a bra right now in order for certain things to fit as they're supposed to. And,
corsets were about getting a body shape for fashion, for clothing to look a certain way, and so it started off with, I don't know, like it started off a long time.
It started as a stays and bodices, and then it became stays, and then it became eventually the corset.
But say in the 18th century, you have the very specific look with the extra wide hips, basically with these dresses that are structured in a way with all this kind of, like wire and wood and all this kind of stuff in order to project this idea of enormously wide hips
in very tiny way.
In a way that's but your waist looks really thin because the hips are extra wide, but it's not really. These women haven't got 16-inch waists. It's all smaller.
No, it's an illusion, and I really appreciate that they seek to trick the eye rather than become very thin.
Exactly. But say in the 19th century, that fashion totally went away. Like that disappeared. That didn't carry on. That like frickin' just disappeared. You look at Napoleonic fashions, and there's no waist stuff there. It's just cinched under the bust, and then it's straight down. And then that fashion came in again towards like the mid-19th century. That started to come back. And in a big way, when you have the enormously wide dresses, not wide like they were in the 18th century with like flat kind of width, like out the sides, this was all the way around a circular width. And that became a big kind of fashion in the mid-19th century. And then that kind of slimmed down a bit, but you still had that, it's flared at the skirts look a little wider, it's flared, and you have the tighter waist, and that was caused by the corsets, and that's when those really started to become a thing. But tight lacing was only for the extremely wealthy, because no one could afford to
not breathe
to do that.
and the thing is, like, pretty much support generally is a thing that you need. I mean, if you have breasts, support is something that you do need. Not always, but on occasion at least. So, like the bra, the corset as well offered support. And if you were not crazy and did not tight lace, it wasn't really anything further than that. It was, first of all, tailored to you. It was not a one-size-fits-all thing. One-size-fits-all thing. And it was basically created to be comfortable for you, give you support, and make you look good, all at the same time.
Fashion, practicality, all these things always kind of intersect the way they do now, the way they've always done in various ways. And people take it too far. There were people taking it too far back then. There were, like we say, the tight laces, and that became an incredible fashion for especially wealthy people who could afford the time and effort to do that. Because those women aren't, scrubbing floors and carrying heavy objects and birthing 16 children. They were the wealthy women who didn't have to do any of that, so they could afford to spend time cinching their waists right down to tiny widths, and then getting photos taken to prove how small they are. And what they would do is they would like paint the backgrounds really black, and then they would paint their outfits so it had black sides and to make themselves look even thinner, and then they have the photos doctored.
Exactly.
Have their waist
Photoshop
edited,
existed back then. It was just done a different way.
I was gonna say the original filters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they did everything they could. They were, these duchesses and all this. They were competing against each other. They didn't do this for men. They weren't going this. Oh, maybe he'll find me sexy because I've got a thin waist. It's more like, Duchess such and such of Sussex or whatever has this thin waist. How could she, the bitch? I'm the one with a thinner waist. Jesus. They were competing against each other. Yeah, they didn't give a shit what the men thought. And these actually, the whole idea that the men were causing the women to do this is actually, there's a bit on its head, because there were these men, doctors, who were going, these women with the tight lacing, they're hurting themselves. They're displacing their livers and their kidneys. This is bad for them. And they were like part of these movements to stop women tightly and to ban the corset. That's what men were about. And they weren't doing it to ban the corset because it was, good for women to do. They were really doing it because they just didn't like the fashion, and they were justifying it by saying, "Oh, it's bad for them." And
Speaking
stuff like
of,
that.
it's amazing that the same rhetoric that exists today existed back then. In like our society is coming apart at the seams because, for example, they are tight lacing, or because the corset is very voluminous or not voluminous enough, or they are being very racy with the lobster tail thing that they have under their waists, and what are we coming to? And the previous generation walked 2 miles upslope in modest clothing, and that sort of thing. It's the same rhetoric. It's exactly the same. It's amazing.
It's always existed.
Yeah.
It's always, we talk about sumptuary stuff. These poor people dressing, this way. But, we go back to Roman and Egyptian times. There's people talking about outfits and what people should wear, and people being, inappropriate with what they're wearing. So people have always cared about, and that's not to say I don't. Jesus, I do the same thing. I think, oh my God, what dressing that way, you fool. Disgusting outfits. You have no style or taste. I do the same thing, and I'm sure you do.
There are certain things in fashion that I absolutely despise. The fall of civilization has happened for me.
Exactly. We can comment on this stuff, but it doesn't mean we're not part of it.
Absolutely.
And we're not affected in the same way.
I try not to, but I do admit there's some judgmentalism. Mine is more directed at guys, probably. But I don't like it. It's inborn. It's a natural instinct to sort of judge some people on what they're wearing if it's too outlandish. Particularly guys. It's okay if females do it. That's not right, but it just kind of...
There are certain, I don't know, I think I have judgmental ideas about fashion items for both genders. Like, for one, I hate leggings. I hate them viscerally. I despise them. I always had, like, in every time they come back in fashion, I hate it.
It's a constant. They never change.
That's for the lady, and even if, with the exception of men in ballet, I love them there. They are amazing there. But that's the only thing. For men, I hate low crotch anything that elongates the torso too much. Like the trousers or the pants are down at the hip, or the crotch is down at the thigh, or what. I hate that. I don't care who is wearing it.
Right.
I'm
not a fan of that either.
Oh,
I hate it.
I have so many hates. Oh my God. When the tight jeans came in,
I don't mind that.
Like, even for women, I didn't like them on women, but whatever, that's just me. But on men, oh my God, no, please don't wear them if you're a man. And it was really the men who wore them were people who were a little bit overweight, so they would have the hip handles would stick out, and it would they just looked awkward and uncomfortable, and just tight jeans, high vis. That became a fashion for workwear. Suddenly, all tradesmen and workers in certain industries were mandated to wear high visibility clothing, as if it suddenly made them safer. And this happened in like the early 2000s, I think. Suddenly it was just everywhere, all over the whole world. Everybody's wearing this stuff, and it's just no, don't. Jesus.
I don't mind that, honestly.
it's just it in Australia. It's there's a thing where the tradesmen, we call them tradies, are a kind of like they're the lowest kind of education jobs you can get, but they're the highest paid. Well, not highest, but they're very, very, very highly paid. So you can leave high school with, nothing, and you can walk into these very highly paid tradesman jobs, and their high visibility is almost a badge of their culture and.
Oh, it's a statement. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a statement, and I just hate it. I really do.
So long as they are not in legging form, I'm okay with it.
I'm sure that will come about, Towns. I'm sure it will.
Well, hey, I just say bless them.
Yeah.
They're hard jobs. Not a lot of people
Yeah.
want to do them. I'm glad they pay well.
Yeah.
Oh, in Australia, they all want to do them, Baines.
I wish I'd gone more in the trades
anybody who
route
can.
in hindsight, because those jobs are now in demand. And,
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Society is on its head in this country in terms of that. It's If you got a white collar job, well, job, no. If you got a tradesman job, oh my God, this is pay you hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars. Yeah, it's so high vis and tight jeans. That's a bad thing. But there are so many more things that shorts. Okay, shorts are okay if it's summer and it's hot. Not in winter. What the hell are you doing wearing
it's
shorts?
It's a certain type.
Winter?
I know plenty of people.
God.
You see them in the dead of winter with a jacket and shorts. It's so
wow.
funny. Yeah.
No, not here. I don't think. I haven't seen that.
That didn't exist in Australia. It was only Canadians who did it here, literally.
I think so.
Canadians would visit Australia and they would wear. Now everybody does it.
That's so interesting. Wow.
Okay, one thing I really hate is stockings or socks in open toe shoes, male or female, doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what kind.
Yeah, that's a famous fashion faux pas, isn't it?
Yeah, I really don't like it. And I don't care if you are wearing sheer stocking, like nylon stockings. I still hate it if you do that.
It used to be a fashion faux pas, especially for men, to wear socks and sandals. But because of stupid American sports people, I think basketballers, and they're wearing these things, they call them sliders. It's basically a slipper, but they call it sliders. And that became a fashion for them to wear socks and these slippers. And now that's become, that I think it's slowly dying out now. But in the last 3-4 years, that became massive fashion for certain sorts of men to wear. Basically, young people in their early 20s.
Oh my God!
Slippers and socks.
No,
sandals and socks.
Yeah,
and it looked shit.
Yeah. No.
Sliders are here, tiny little sandwiches.
Yeah.
Be careful what you order.
Yeah, I didn't even know what these things were called. I would see people walking around and think, "You're wearing slippers?" And then just only recently, exactly. You call them sliders? Is that how you get around the fact that you're wearing slippers?
Slippers, sliders. Oh, I just made that connection. It took me a while. Yeah, sliders, slippers.
The only one.
I only made that connection just then when you said that, Baines.
The only ones in my book that get away, that should and must and do get away with socks and sandals or sliders or Crocs or what have you, is nursing staff and doctors and the only ones that are allowed.
Well, the practicality for a uniform is like, wearing pajamas in public. That's basically what a military uniform is, for the camouflage, like top and trousers. It's basically pajamas, baggy trousers, and a baggy top. It's pajamas, but it's okay because they need it and it's practical. But we should finish up because we've got
Joe Rogan. What
an
is
hour
this show?
and
Been going for like 2 hours.
20 minutes. Yeah, just
Like,
constantly 24
have we reached our
hour
telethon
Quackcast.
goal yet? Are we there?
Oh my God, yeah. We should do one of those eventually if we're crazy
Yes.
enough and drunk enough.
We have done 24
How many?
hour Quackcasts.
Not in a row.
12 hours, yeah, we did that years ago
Yeah.
as a special thing, and I was the only one left, and it was a nightmare. And
If we had a
Anyway.
reason to do it and we had the listeners, that'd be cool.
It
But yeah,
was-
we should get going so we can all eat and do our thing.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Quackcast number
Bye-bye.
49.